Shalom Dammit! This is Rabbi Sol Solomon with a Rabbinical reflection for the week of June 8th, 2014. Well, it's time for the Tonys, ladies and gentlemen, the moment when Broadway goes into a tizzy, honoring and celebrating itself, while the rest of the world pretty much watches basketball. I love the theater, and for all its eccentricities and unfairness, and shows about men who dress up as women, because that's the only thing Broadway seems to be about these days, I wouldn't trade a night at the theater for 10 nights under an olive tree with Mayim Bialik. 11 even! Broadway was a busy street this season, with more than 40 new productions. I haven't seen that many openings since my proctologist made a time-lapse documentary. But you know, my interest in the Tonys is more religious than aesthetic. I want to know where the Jews are, and how did my beloved people fare in the season and in the voting. For example, 2 of the 5 best play nominees were written by Jews. James Lapine wrote Act 1, which has 2 acts. Try figuring that shit out. The play concerns 2 other Jews, the great comedy writing team of George S. Kaufman and Moss Hart. You can tell they were Jews because they wrote "You Can't Take It With You," which is just the kind of negative thinking that drives Jews to Alka-Seltzer. Also, that iconic Fagula Harvey Fierstein returned to Broadway with his first new play in 25 years. Casa Valentina is about a group of married heterosexual men who take 2 weeks off each year to cross-dress and live like women. Why anybody would want to spend a vacation being bitchy and unreasonable while fighting off periods, headaches, and sagging tits is beyond me, but that's the magic of theater. Broadway musicals have been a traditional Jewish stomping ground, from Fanny Brice to Lonnie Price, from Harold Clurman to Ethel Merman, from Jerome Robbins backstage to Baskin Robbins at the concession stand. And it's still true. This year's musicals have enough Jews to start their own ghetto. After Midnight, yes, it's crawling with Schwarzes, but it was conceived by Jack Viertel. Aladdin by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. One's alive, one's dead. Both were circumcised. Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Not just Carole King, but Jerry Goffin, Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, Don Gershner, Neil Sedaka. If you threw in Phil Spector, you'd have a minion and a bloodbath, but still. The most nominated show of all, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, was co-written by Jews, and a show that didn't even get nominated, Bullets Over Broadway, was scripted by Woody Allen. The show got a Best Book Tony nomination, but don't expect him to show up for the ceremony because he can't find a babysitter to rape. It does pain me to say that other categories for this year's Tony Awards are rather chary with their chosen choices. Samuel Barnett, who was in Twelfth Night, is half Jewish, half Quaker, which means he takes messages from the Bible and turns them into whiny complaints. But I complain that none of the other Best Actor candidates is Jewish. There's 2 Irishmen, a Brit, and an Arab. The Arab is Tony Shalhoub, so we won't hold that against him. Except for Idina Menzel, who's so Jewish, John Travolta tried to pronounce her name in Hebrew. All the best actresses are Shiksas and Schwarzes. You have to go all the way down to Best Featured Actor to find a few Landsmen. Danny Burstein playing an old Jewish man in Cabaret. He's a bissel young for the part, so I've been coaching him in phlegm-hocking lessons on his day off. You've also got Jared Spector in Beautiful. Now, he committed the biggest sin a Jewish boy chick can commit. He left college in his junior year to pursue the acting. He said in an interview, quote, "It wasn't easy to tell my parents that I was leaving Princeton." Princeton! Gotten you! An economics major yet! Why not put a stake in their hearts? And the lamb chop too. But my parents, Spector said, were phenomenally understanding. Sure they were, Jared, because their oven was big enough to fit 2 heads. But seriously, the kid made good. He played Frankie Valli on Broadway in Jersey Boys more than 1,500 times. Spector said, quote, "There's an Italian-Jewish closeness I think I have, which means he can make you an offer you can't stop debating." On the whole, this was not the most Judeo-friendly year on Broadway. Yes, you had Billy Crystal and 700 Sundays, but you also had Soul Doctor about smooth-singing, hippie-grooving, teenager-touching Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. That musical sold so few tickets they held Kaddish at the box office. Harold Pinter had 2 plays revived, both of which were hits, neither of which were nominated. There was a play called The Velocity of Autumn, about a spunky old lady in a Brooklyn brownstone and her gay son. Both of them should have been Jewish, but weren't. That show went down faster than Malaysian Flight 370. Meanwhile, off-Broadway, they did have one show of interest. What was it called? Bad Jews. Playing at the Harold and Miriam Steinberg Center, no less. It was all about young Israel types fighting over their dead grandfather's chai necklace. Well, it ain't Shalom Aleichem, but I'm not Myron Cohen either. So, I wish mazel and congratulations on a job well done to all the Tony candidates, Jewish and otherwise, for creating live entertainment in a world where fun increasingly means pushing a button, sliding a mouse, and staring at a screen for 8 hours. I think there's more to life than that. Anyway, if you enjoyed this rabbinical reflection, remember you can watch it again on YouTube by pressing the URL button, sliding your mouse to the video, and watching the screen. This has been a rabbinical reflection from Rabbi Sol Solomon, Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. On with the show.